as I wrap up, I'll share with you what my personal take is on Islamic education at the higher levels. At the higher levels. Currently, we have Islamic institutions all over the Muslim world that offer, different kinds of certifications. So you have Darul Ulum, Deoband. You have Jami'at al-Azhar. You have Islamic University Medina. You have different institutions all over the world. Turkey has its institutions. Indonesia, Malaysia have their institutions. India, Pakistan have their institutions for Islamic studies. For Islamic studies. Though those institutions are great, there is a new need. In addition, not in replacement of those institutions, but in addition to those institutions, there's a very serious need. If somebody says, I want to study counseling, I want to study counseling, and I want to help Muslims, marriage counseling, that sort of thing. Where do I study Islamic counseling? I don't know where to point you. I don't know where to point you. I could say go to a psychology program, go to a secular counseling program, and then maybe study with a sheikh or something like that. But we don't have a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD in Islamic counseling. We don't have a bachelor's, master's, PhD in Islamic political science. We don't have a bachelor's, master's, PhD in Islamic sociology. We don't have a bachelor's, master's, PhD in Islamic economics. We don't have these things. We don't have these things. Now, does Islam have something to say about psychology, about counseling, about sociology, about economics, about politics? Does it have anything to say about these things? Absolutely, it does. But our education is based on the text itself. Sharia studies, Aqidah studies, history studies. I'm arguing that those texts actually address a lot more than Sharia, Aqidah, and history. They actually address all human concerns. They address all human concerns. And we have an opportunity in the United States, because we're such a diverse population, and we have scholars from so many different backgrounds that we can import here, and they're already here even, to start building specialized programs in Islamic studies. I don't want to build something that's already there. We shouldn't have to build our own Sharia program. Sharia programs are already there. We shouldn't have to build our own schools that teach Hanafi fiqh. Hanafi fiqh is already there. Shafi'i fiqh schools are already there. Maliki fiqh schools are already there. What isn't there? Schools that are, with the help of traditional Islamic scholars, that are teaching the humanities, that are teaching the social sciences, that are allowing us to develop a generation of, I have a degree in Islamic education. What that means is, how do you teach children Islam? You get an education major, you should have an Islamic education major. I'm a certified Islamic teacher. We don't have that. We need it. It's a desperate need of our times. I want to get into marriage counseling from the Islamic perspective. I want to get into teen counseling from the Islamic perspective. I'd like to study, anthropology from the Islamic perspective. I want to study medical ethics from the Islamic perspective. How many doctors in the audience today? How many doctors? A number. Medical ethics issues come up or no? All the time. Where do you have to go? We don't even know where to go. Is there even at least some kind of training for Muslim doctors to have, okay, here's the medical ethics issues from the Islamic point of view. Here's what you need to know, your guide, right? So I'm arguing that we in the United States are in a position to develop a practical higher Islamic education, instead of a theoretical higher Islamic education, which is already in place. So you can have a PhD in tafsir, which is a PhD in the text. But PhD in tafsir as it relates to psychology is something else. As it relates to sociology is something else. You become a resource in a particular field. And I believe we have the opportunity to do that. And I believe if we have the vision to do that, it's just a matter of execution. Ameen ya Rab. And wallahi, if we can start doing this, the great advantage of it, in my last minute, I said I'll end in 5 minutes, I will end in 1 minute now. What's the advantage of doing this? The advantage of doing this is the majority of the Muslim world today. Whose laptop? That's a really loud phone. It's a very religious phone, but it's really loud. So here's what, and now I'll take a full minute again. I'll restart my clock because of the adhan on the phone. You see, the vast majority of Muslims today, or such a huge number of Muslims today, that are educated. Maybe they're educated with a bachelor's, master's, maybe they're physicians, but they're middle class or upper middle class or upper class. You know what the assumption is in so many Muslim minds? That Islam is backwards. And it's not just Islam, they think religion itself is backwards. We're living in the modern times. And as a result of modernity, we have to keep up with the times. And Islam is one of those things that is holding us back. Islam is not dealing with things that are happening right now. When we create practical Islamic education that deals with realities of our time, then we are able to display in the most intellectual fashion that Islam in fact doesn't just deal with the situations of our time, the needs of our time, the criteria, the areas of inquiry of our time, but actually has solutions in these areas that haven't yet even been discovered. It has things to offer the world of psychology that the world of psychology has never known. They have never known. I'm a basic level student of psychology. I can tell you Islamic psychology can revolutionize how psychology is studied. It can completely revolutionize it. Modern psychology studies begins with the assumption that human beings are flawed, that they have to be fixed. They're just flawed. I mean, from Freud onwards, we're messed up and we have to get unmessed up. So whether it's by means of pills or therapy, whether it's cognitive or medical, clinical psych, you have to undo the mess that you are. Islam begins with the premise that you are flawless. كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. You start with fitrah. And then there were corruptions that came in. You have to if you can undo the corruptions, there's something good at the bottom. There's something pure. There's something great at the essence of the human being. Is our approach going to be completely different as Muslim psychologists? Yeah. It's going to be totally different. Islamic psychology says your whims, your desires, what you wish for, what you want. Allah put that in you, but you have to control it in order to achieve happiness. If you let your desires control you, you will be miserable in this dunya and in the akhirah. Modern psychology says do what feels good. Do what feels good. That's what they'll tell you. What makes you feel comfortable? That must be the judge of what is right for you. Because what is right for you is not what's right for me. Everybody has their own what's right for you based on what? Your whim, your personal desire. Does Islam have something else to offer? Even on the psychological side? Absolutely. And I'm not a PhD in psychology. I'm just basic level, bachelor's level psychology. But I'm telling you, we have a completely different worldview to offer. And it can really help people. This deen came to help humanity, right? So we are going to be able to give the highest levels of education in Islam if we address the foundations. This is the few things that I wanted to share with you about the renaissance in Islam, that inshallah ta'ala, I'm completely optimistic that it's coming. If we have the vision for it and we have the drive for it, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, we will achieve it. In our own lifetime, we will see a revolution in how Islam is understood all across the world, and the ummah will be uplifted in its information, in its understanding, and in its application. Barakallahu li wa lakum. I'll open it up at this point, inshallah ta'ala, for questions and answers. But before that, Suhail and some of the associates at Sofa are going to make some announcements for you guys. Jazakumullah.